Let's talk a bit more about these talks that are scheduled today. As I was saying before, both sides did report there was some progress over the weekend as they're about to go in. Zelensky himself even saying there seems to be a change, perhaps, in the way that Russia is negotiating. What does that mean exactly?
Right. Well, if you look at the situation now, we're 2.5 weeks into this war, coming up to 3 weeks on Thursday. This has not gone the way the Russians expected. They wanted just to move in, to roll in their tanks and for the Ukrainians to roll over. I think that was the initial hope and plan of Vladimir Putin. That has not worked. He won't admit it, but it hasn't worked. So all the way down the line, we've had 2 rounds already of talks between Ukrainian and Russian delegates, officials, not between Vladimir Putin on one side and Volodymyr Zelensky on the other. So during these first 2 rounds of talks between the officials, there was little or no progress. What they wanted, the Ukrainian officials, was an agreement on a ceasefire. That hasn't been worked out yet. They did come away off the second round with an agreement to open humanitarian corridors, which both sides have been blaming each other for not working due to shelling. Then we had a meeting last week on Thursday or Friday between the foreign ministers of Russia and Ukraine, which didn't yield anything. It was basically Sergei Lavrov going to Turkey to talk to his Ukrainian counterpart with a list of ultimatums, but with no mandate to negotiate. So since then, Volodymyr Zelensky has said the tide of change is beginning to happen in Ukraine because the Russians are showing a little bit more of an initiative to want to negotiate something. That doesn't mean they're going to stop the shelling. It doesn't mean they're going to stop trying to advance in the war. But it's no longer just a dialogue where the Russians are coming in and asking for the Ukrainians to capitulate. There is some kind of information going on behind the scenes that they may be willing to come up with some kind of agreement on 1 or 2 issues. We don't know which ones at the moment, but we're still not talking about a ceasefire here, Jeannie. And on top of that, we have two relentless calls from Volodymyr Zelensky. One is for the instigation of a no-fly zone over his country. He's been saying that again. That is a no-go from NATO and from the West and from the European Union for the time being. And the second thing he wants is for talks to take place directly between him and Vladimir Putin. For the moment, Vladimir Putin has not accepted the offer. It looks pretty much like a long shot because I don't think the Russian president is going to do that. But I think the pressure is growing on Vladimir Putin. He's got Emmanuel Macron talking to him regularly. He's got now had the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz talking to him. He's under pressure because the war is not going the way he expected. There are some Russian generals who've already been sacked from their jobs as a result of this. So I think the pressure is being stepped up on the international front and also from the Ukrainian leader himself, who's won the image of this war as the leader, becoming a much more charismatic leader than Vladimir Putin. And this is stacking the pressure on Vladimir Putin. Will he give in to it? For the moment, I don't think so. But there's going to be no let up on that pressure on the Russian leader in the hopes that maybe at some point down the line when he sees this war is not going as he expected, he may begin to want to try to find a way out of this without losing.
Philip, let's get back to that phone call you mentioned there on Friday between the French president, the German chancellor, and Vladimir Putin. No progress was reported from that call. In fact, the French foreign minister said he feared the worst was still yet to come. Is there a place for international diplomacy in all of this? Why do they keep trying?
Well, many people have said, that exactly that. Why is Vladimir Putin and talking to Emmanuel Macron? And what is the point of these phone calls when we hear that they go on for like 1 hour, 2 hours, 2.5 hours? What are they talking about for all this time? And the message coming out of the Élysée Palace in Paris is that Emmanuel Macron is one of the only leaders who has a direct access to the Russian president at the moment. And he has the legitimacy to do that because France is the current leader of the European Union. It holds the rotating presidency of the European Council. So he is perceived by Russia as being more of a legitimate leader. There's no contact between Joe Biden and Vladimir Putin. So Russia is really only in contact a bit with the Israelis, also with the Germans and with the French. So I think that Emmanuel Macron feels that so long as the door is open to talks with Vladimir Putin, he can carry on telling him he's making a mistake, he needs to find a way out, he needs to reach a compromise, he needs to talk to the Ukrainians, working away on the Russian president in the hopes that eventually this might make some progress inside Vladimir Putin's head. For the moment, they haven't made any progress. But as long as the door is open, Vladimir Putin can't also blame the West for closing the door and saying we're not going to talk anymore. So there may be a way forward somewhere in these discussions in trying to convince the Russian president that he needs to reach a ceasefire and he needs to end this conflict as soon as possible.
All right, Philip, thanks for that. France 24's Philip Turle.